makes it clear that there is an hour and a time that is allocated for each burden and for each yoke. So the prophecy then goes and says, it shall come to pass in that day that his burden will be taken out of your shoulders, that his yoke be broken from your neck because of the anointing. So family, the Lord has a time that is set to remove burdens and to break yokes. You know, the father of Jacob and Esau, that is Isaac, after he had blessed Jacob and told him, thou shalt be great amongst your own brothers, and your brothers will serve you and become your slaves, and you shall become a lord over them. And that was a blessing that he proclaimed to his son Jacob, which he mistakenly was trying to give it to Esau. So he told Jacob, according to the prophecy spoken by the angel to his mother, that indeed there are two nations inside of your womb. Hence there is a war inside of you. Yet the younger one will be greater than the elder, and yet the elder one will serve the younger. So it happened that when the mother understood this prophecy, she knew that the blessing ought to be given to the little one, who is Jacob, whose name is Israel. And then by trickery, the mother makes sure that the father releases the blessing, and the blessing is released. But in the releasing of the blessing, the father says that you shall be a lord over your brothers. You shall rule over them, and they shall become your slaves, because God will make you great. But the father doesn't understand that this blessing that is giving of ruling over your brothers and your brothers becoming slave is not giving it to the right person. He's giving it to Jacob. And the father thought he's giving it to Esau. So now Jacob is blessed, and he is now given the charge to become the Lord over his brothers, and to reign and to rule over his brothers. And then when Esau comes back, he asked the father for the blessing. And the father said, unfortunately, son, I gave all the blessing to Jacob, for Jacob deceived me. And the Bible says when Esau heard that the blessing was all given to Jacob, he cried. He cried and he asked the father, he said, Father, is there no blessing that is left in you? Is there no remaining blessing that is left in you that you can give it to me? So the Bible says Esau cried. When Esau cried, the father decided that he would extend and bless Esau, but listen to the father's words. When he proclaims a secondary blessing to Esau. So he says, for surely you will serve Jacob, your brother. For surely you will become a slave of your brother Jacob, and you shall wander around about, sing upon Jacob, sing upon Jacob. Yet I can't even reverse the yoke that is upon you. Yet I can't even reverse the yoke that is upon you, that you become a slave to Jacob. For surely you will serve Jacob until a time when your neck has grown bigger and that his yoke can never fit into your neck. When your wings have grown, then thou shalt break your brother's yoke, and thou shalt become a ruler like him. So in other words, the yoke of serving Jacob, the yoke of becoming a slave that was proclaimed on Esau, it was not permanent. It was simply for a season. But listen to the words of the Father. He said, when your neck has grown bigger, that it might no longer fit into the chains, it might no longer fit into the yoke of your brother, then thou shalt break the yoke of your brother, and thou shalt become a nation. I've come to understand necks are growing. There's a time when wings grow again. There's a time when God makes you to be bigger than the yoke. That the yoke can no longer fit into your neck. And then when that time comes, the yokes are broken and the burdens are removed. The Lord prophesied unto Abraham, and he said to Abraham, I'm giving you this land, a land I will give to your descendants. And then he said to him, for your descendants shall become slaves unto Pharaoh in Egypt for 400 years. He said, your people, your generation, they became slave for 400 years. To them, it might have looked like it was permanent. It might have looked like it was a yoke that was meant to be there forever. Imagine 400 years, that is a lot. And they were slaves. But the Bible says, then the Lord appeared to Moses in a burning bush and said to Moses, I've heard the cry of my people in the land of Egypt, and I've come that I may rescue them. I've come that I may deliver them out. Now, family, that is after 400 years. After 400 years, the Lord said, now the time has come to come out of slavery and get a nation that belongs to you as your own. A land in which I promised to your fathers that I'll give to you. So out of 400 years, then they came out of Egypt and they went to the promised land. So it was bound that, so the Bible tells us that they grew in number even in the presence of the Pharaoh's oppression. He could not suppress them, because yokes are only for a season. Burdens are only for a time. No matter how much he tried to oppress them, the Bible says they continued and multiplied in the midst of oppression, because yokes were only for a season and burdens only for a time. Family, I don't know what burden are you facing. I don't know what yoke that has been upon you. But I came to give you a sense of understanding that yokes are not permanent and burdens are not forever. That each and every yoke has an assigned time, it's got an assigned season that it expires as your neck begins to grow. Though Jacob would rule over Esau, but the Bible tells us that when Esau's neck had grown, it will break the yoke of Jacob. And it happened. And it happened. Family, that burdens have a day when they are broken over your neck. And it shall come to pass in that day that his burden will be removed from your shoulders. That his neck, his yoke will be broken from your neck because of the anointing. In other versions it says, because your neck would have grown fatter and fatter. Now, whatever burden that is upon you, I want you to change your attitude and say, my neck is growing, and the more my neck grows, the more the burden can't fit anymore. The more the yoke cannot fit in my neck anymore, because I've become fatter and fatter. Now this is the reason why the Philistines could not understand it. Because the Philistines had removed the eyes of Samson, and because they remove his eyes, they will tell him to make a good dance for them. Imagine being a warrior who was so strong, very much feared, then suddenly you find yourself as a dancer being mocked by people which you could easily defeat, and yet you don't even have eyes to see them. So Samson had been bound by the Philistines and had been taken as a slave by the Philistines, that he could not even see because they had made him to be blind. So this was his burden. This was his yoke. A blind Samson, mocked by the Philistines every day. But the Bible says, one thing the Philistines did not calculate correctly was the time in which how long can they continue, was growing in the midst of the pain. Yet his hair was growing in the midst of being blind when without eyes to see. But his hair was growing. They stole his sight, but they could not permanently steal his strength. So they monitored him, thinking he was a harmless man, because now he had no eyes to see. But they could not understand that the strength of the warrior would rise again, that the anointing upon the man would come back again. They didn't understand that the hair of Samson will grow again. Now, family, I came to prophesy to somebody who say I've lost my vision. My enemies have cut off my sight and my eyes. When I look at the future, I see no hope. When I look at the future, I see as if it's the end. It looks like my vision is blurred, and I can't see beyond today. I came to speak to somebody who feels like there's been a loss and they are under a bondage. I've come to speak to a person who says, I know that I'm not where I'm supposed to be. There's seemingly a weight over me that I can't get rid of right now. But I want to say to you, remember, in the midst of the mockery, his hair was growing. In the midst of the pain, his hair was growing. There's one thing that the enemy cannot calculate. It is the duration of your struggle. There's one thing that the devil cannot figure out is how long can the burden stay. Because there's one thing that is permanently accurate, that there is no struggle forever. There is no burden that is permanent. There is no situation that is forever. When the apostles speak about it, he said, for now we know that the present sufferings are nothing to be compared to the glory that is to be revealed.